Hello everybody, I'm here with James Eaton, who is a teacher here at Totnes. This is my living room. And James is a teacher, and he holds meetings and retreats about non-duality. And I went for one of his retreats recently, and what I really appreciate about James is his a very simple, a very clear, a very uncluttered way of conveying the message, right? And that's something I want to get into. What is the message? Because I think in this field, you know, Eckhart Tolle, Muji, Tony Parsons, you know, these teachers, sometimes it's quite difficult to explain to the layperson what the message is. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that. First of all, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to this particular point in your life where you decided you wanted to talk about this message, and you know, a bit about your history.
Yeah. Well, my sort of journey, if you like, is probably quite a familiar one, in that there's always a sense for me that there is more. That the life I was living somehow felt limited and just not enough, never enough. There's always something else that I couldn't quite grasp or understand. So, I mean, when I look back over my life now, I can see that throughout the whole of my life, in a sense, especially later life as an adolescent and as an adult. Didn't really see it that way at the time, but always looking for something, maybe in relationships or in careers or, you know, whatever it might be. And in going through all those things, I've always been one of those kinds of people that burn through something very quickly. You see, that's not what I'm looking for. Whatever it is I'm looking for, it's not that. And then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, you know.
So what were you looking for? What is this?
Well, I had no idea at the time, you know. It was just a kind of compulsion, you know. The way life seemed to be somehow was just lacking. Even though, you know, outwardly my life seemed to be, you know, very wonderful in a sense, you know. It seemed to be very successful, and, you know, life had given me lots of opportunities, so there was nothing to complain about in that sense. So yeah, I just, lots of people that I speak to all the time, very similar story, you know, looking through all these different places to try and find the answer, whatever it might be. And then that became a spiritual seeking. So I got into lots of different spiritual paths, like Gnosticism, Gurdjieff, Ouspensky, meditation. There's a whole list, I could go on forever, you know. Which is very common as well. But the same thing happened. I'd burn through these different ways, and at some point I would just have this voice that would say, "This ain't it either. This isn't what you're looking for." Like, you know, and then other practices, whatever practices I was given, would become dull and difficult, and, you know, and more beating oneself up. Oh, I can't do the practice properly. I need to try harder. And on and on and on it goes, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's the way it was. And then, when it seemed like nowhere left to turn, in a sense, you know, I came across this message, and which kind of leads into what you were saying before. The difference with this message was that all those other seekings, in a sense, it was still me seeking, me looking for something out there, somewhere else. Yeah. Whereas this message was uniquely different in that it was asking the question, who is looking? Who is it that's doing all this meditation, that's doing all this practicing or chanting or whatever it is that you're doing? And it seems like such an obvious question, really, but one that I'd never looked into.
Mm.
And so I began looking into that.
Mm. So it's really, it's about the assumptions, isn't it? It's about the very basics of where life, or what life is in some sense. It's this very, philosophy is very much about the fundamentals. It's about the very assumptions that you've created on your thinking.
Mm.
And the message seems to be as fundamental or as basic as it gets. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the fundamental assumption is that what I am is exclusively, very important word, this body, this thinking process. Yeah, and so then if I'm this limited, exclusively this limited me, then everything else is by definition outside of me, separate from me, and then I feel isolated, vulnerable. So I need to protect, and off we go, creating a whole repertoire of self-images that we use to hide behind, in a sense. So this message was basically questioning that very assumption, and I see it so simply now. I mean, literally, are you now? So, thoughts want to reach in. What does he mean? Am I now? Am I here now? Of course, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you're kind of putting two things together.
Yeah,
there.
but we don't need to grasp a thought to know that we are, or a sensation. It's just given. It's totally given that you are. It's such an obvious thing. It's totally overlooked, discarded as being nothing at all. But that sentience, beingness, it's totally given. You can't get away from it. So we hear that and go, what? And we sort of
duh.
Yeah, we sort of run away from that. But actually, that's really central to this.
Yeah.
Because can you point to that sentience, that beingness that's hearing this sound?
I would like to say yes. But
yeah, but that's it. It's being childlike again, you see, because we can say yes and we can come up with a whole, yes, it's here, this is where it is, its edges are here, But when we're childlike and we don't go into our sort of bag of ideas, then it's undeniable that we are, and we can't point to that. It's here, but nowhere to be found. It's so stark, staringly obvious. It's just a sort of resistance that comes up to seeing that. Because the suggestion is, if you can't find where you are, you can't point to where you are, then the idea upon which you've been basing your entire life is an idea. Reinforced by, almost everything in our culture. So there can be a great deal of resistance.
So who or what is responsible for making me Chinese and having black hair? And why do you have brown hair? And why do you have white skin?
I have no idea.
Because that's something
I have
that
no idea why it
follows.
is the way it is. Why this unlocatable, unbounded sentience, awareness, presence, knowing, whatever we want to call it, that we are. Why that should choose to express as these hands moving here and this interview we're conducting now, and you, Ken, and me, James, and our uniqueness, our eccentricities that make us completely different, and yet in our essence identical. that's the paradox of being alive. You know? Individuality within indivisibility. Why? I have no idea.
Yeah. I also think there's I was watching one of your videos about the middle way,
Yeah.
and I thought that was a great fine tuning or a good pointer, especially for people who are really into this.
Right.
You know, I think there are a lot of well, I don't know, you know, this audience is probably going to be quite diverse, but I think a lot of them are, you know, heavily into this. They've watched a lot of other non-duality teachers.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that message of not denying the body. You know, I love to take you as an example because I love it that you have a family, you have 2 kids. You're not you're not like, you know, living a monastic existence. You're a musician, you know, and you're a very normal guy, you know, as opposed to some other teachers out there who might have a kind of image of a kind of a, you know, this is something very different, something very special.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important point to make as well for people who are starting to get started, because it's part of the ego to go to extremes as well, isn't it? To create a kind of spiritual persona, and then you're like, whoa, nah, nothing exists. And, you know, I don't need to get involved. Nothing. You know, this is a dream, this is an illusion.
Yeah, we do love to sort of polarize things, you know, so we think we're exclusively this, and that doesn't seem to work. There's that sense of lack we were just talking about. And then we hear this message, and then we jump to the other extreme, the other end of the paradox, if you like. I am boundless awareness, and that's it, you know, that's what I am, expressing as a world of whatever colour. Even to give anything a kind of label is a concept, so we don't go there. You know, oh, it's conceptual, it's thought, you know. Yeah, but in my experience, this boundless awareness, presence, being that I am, does express as thoughts, does seem to sprinkle definitions. Yeah. So, you know, a you and a me, a sofa, you know, here's a sofa. To deny that seems to me like another whole game. You know?
Sure.
But what we're doing here is it's like those definitions, they become transparent in a way, so you can still use them, but they lose their sort of opacity. You know, it's not like they block everything out. They are the truth. They're just a kind of useful exchanging. Here we are, exchanging words, communicating.
Yeah.
Everything I say, everything you say is a noise. But our shared definition gives it a meaning, makes it a conversation. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, we can dance this paradox. We can be this infinite, not finite presence, being, whatever. And we can also see that we are this character, although not exclusively. That's where all the angst comes from. And then, in my experience, the wonder of that is that this character that I am is freed up. It can be itself. It doesn't have to be like someone else. It can be its unique self. It can really celebrate its uniqueness. You know, not constrained by the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, and become even more individual. That's the crazy, you know, thing that doesn't make sense at all. So it's not about, you know, losing your kind of character and becoming some kind of blank and rejecting the world of form. That's another position. It's a spiritual me, you know.
Yeah, that's being attached to unattachment, isn't it? You're still
so
attached
many,
to something.
You know, double
there are
layers,
many layers.
resistance to resistance, you know, all this kind of stuff. Judging judgments.
Yeah, for me, it definitely hangs well, there's an idea in the Course in Miracles that nothing is coincidental. That has to be, there is a meaning to it. There's a reason for what's happening in your life, you know, and there's a reason for why I'm Chinese and you're English. And for everything that's happening in my life, there has to be a reason for that. So it's appreciating that, is looking beyond the surface of it to see the deeper kind of meaning or the deeper themes in it.
Does it have to be a reason? I mean, any reason you find, it's an idea, isn't it?
Sure.
When I'm sitting here with you now, reasons, ideas, they're things that come and go. I have no idea about life at all. Any idea I have about life is an idea. It's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, and there are lots of wonderful ideas. I'm not saying ideas are worthless. Ideas are beautiful. Yeah, when this beingness shines in a thought, when it reveals itself in that intelligence. I mean, you know, this is being filmed on a video camera. You know, we have iPhones and fly across the world in airplanes and all sorts of things that are a product of ingenious ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to about knowing about life, how can an idea access what it arises and dissolves within?
Right. It can't. You can't.
Yeah, so it doesn't stop us building frameworks of ideas, it's fine.
Sure.
But when we start thinking and believing that those ideas are reality, then we're back in that place again where we feel limited, because we're closed in by our definite ideas about the way it is.
Yeah, I guess where I was going with that is kind of like, for example, relationships. and kind of like, I was talking about themes and deeper meanings in the sense of using reality, you know, patterns in my relationships with women or my relationships with my friends as a kind of vehicle to access this freedom. I don't know if you see what I mean, but
Yeah.
it's kind of stuff that we've put on that, and we are very often confronted with the image of what is. But to get to the message, we have to see past that and to see, okay, it's because I had a difficult relationship with my mother, you know, that I'm acting out this thing with my girlfriend. So, I mean, that's the kind of angle that I was going from, and that in some ways is a tool that A Course in Miracles uses to get to this message.
Yeah.
I don't know if
hear
that's
what
a
you're saying.
bridge, or, you know, because what you teach, I find it well, it's very pure in that sense. It's very kind of,
Yeah, you see, I see it the other way around.
okay.
I hear what you're saying, but I would say when you see your true nature, which is here now, it's always here. It can't not be what is. You can't get away from it. Actually, it's the fabric of everything. And then when you see the truth of that, that understanding infuses your life. It kind of percolates into your life experience. So you may be in some kind of relationship that has difficulties, problems, and instead of going round those same old cycles, yeah, it's like a new possibility opens up. Not because you've you know, decided to have a new possibility, but this freedom being in your life, sort of being planted and germinating and growing in your life, it starts to open things up, loosen things up. That's the sort of byproduct of this understanding. And then you may find, you know, when that pattern comes up, you don't go down the old path. There's a new way, but there's no one really doing that. It just reveals itself. Maybe you keep going the old way for a few times, but then a new way, then a new sort of possibility is in your life. So I'm not. That's not to say that the kind of work you're talking about is worthless. Not at all. I mean, you can make your life much more comfortable. Yeah, without any of what I'm talking about here. You know, all the sort of regular therapies have a value to them in that they can make your life more comfortable. But in my experience, it's a kind of endless process. There's always more stuff to come out, and that sense of there is more to life doesn't go away. There's always that deep sense of lack. That's what I always found. It's when you see that you're not limited to who you imagine yourself to be, that is also what you are, but you're so much bigger. Bigger is not the right word. Then that seems to have its own effect on the play of our life. The other end of that paradox, the appearance.
And is that a state of being? Is that a because I say this because I go through some periods where I'm very clear about this message, and then I go through other periods where I completely forget this, and there's always this. I don't know if it's my ego making it a thing, but it's not a thing at all. You know, it's just a pure perception of a kind of flow. And I think you spoke in one of your other videos about being in the flow of life, and I think Lady was saying, you know, sometimes I don't think I'm in the flow, and then you were saying you're always in the flow.
Yeah.
So whether or not you realize it or not. And I just find it a very tricky.
Yeah, I
very
love what
tricky.
you're saying here because it's such a beautiful question, because this, I think, is the most confusing things of all, because like we have so many ideas about what it is to be spiritual, or, you know, I actually don't even see this as spiritual. It's totally straightforward. Yeah, like we think it should look like this, you know, I should be present, having the experience of presence, you know, like a tingling body and sort of being uber aware of everything.
Bright colours.
And of course, I've lost it and I need to get it back, and, you know. But you see, all of that is me-centered. It's like it's all seeing life with the fundamental idea that I'm this one exclusively, with occasional glimpses of something up there. Normally, you know, it's up there. Yeah. So what I'm suggesting is turning that whole thing on its head. Yeah. What if what you really are is life itself, including this one and all its ideas about getting it, losing it, that it should be like this or it should be like that. Those are thoughts arising now in this that you are. This beingness here, this presence, this knowing, pure knowing, not thought 2 + 2 = 4 knowing, but this that recognizes itself now. Yeah. So if that wasn't here, you wouldn't be able to hear this sound, or the dripping tap next door. It would just be nothing. Can you ever remember a time when there was nothing?
I wouldn't be able to remember it.
Exactly. Yeah, you see, you're always here. And the experience, of course, the experience is always changing. Sometimes it's blissed out way. Sometimes it's really frustrating, you know. Sometimes, you know, a cup of tea and a biscuit. Sometimes I'm a computer. I'm intense work on a computer. That's what I am. Expressing as that. It's always changing. So when we take away our definition of how it should be, yeah, like become like a child, 2 years old, just drop all those definitions. Why can't it be like this? Or like this? it's still life being that. And then, that there's a sort of relaxation with that. And then ironically, things do sort of loosen up. When it doesn't have to be any particular way. That's why it's freedom.
And I guess it comes back to this, or for me, it comes back to this question of suffering. And I think a lot of my search, a lot of my, you're talking about a search, and my search is based on this suffering thing. I wanted to not suffer. Very natural thing. And again, there was this inner realization that suffering is not ended by moving away from suffering. It's coming at it from a very different way, which is what we're talking about which is letting it flow through you and seeing that you are not the body that's suffering. You are.
Well, you are, but not exclusively.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It's important to say that,
yes.
Given what we were just talking about.
Yeah. And that's hard. It can be very hard. It can be very hard in the midst of it.
It's hard for me, you see. That's the thing, because if I'm exclusively this, then suffering is a big deal. I mean, it really is a massive deal. And I feel vulnerable, and I don't want that, and I want to escape it. And we go into thinking to try and escape it. All our stories about who did it to me, or where it's come from, how I can change that, all to try and escape the feeling. And then, of course, all those thoughts reinforcing me as this separate me. So if we go back to what we were just talking about, when we turn it on its head, and you see that you are this beingness expressing as the play of your life, then this beingness that we can't point to, we said we couldn't point to it, does that really have anything to fear? Can it be damaged in any way? Like if we say it's like the sky, if you like, and the clouds are all the perceptions arising and moving through. Can you scratch the sky? Can you make a dent somewhere in the sky?
Yeah, I mean, no.
No, but you see that's important, because when you see that's your nature, then suddenly, it's not so essential for you to not feel uncomfortable. So when those feelings come, they can be there because you are not threatened by them. Even those, feeling, like the feelings can really open up with this kind of message, because it's often when we feel that vulnerability, it's when our heart is kind of opening. Not the physical heart, but you know what I mean by the heart, like the kind of deep feelings that are possible in life. And normally we run away from that because we feel exposed. But when you see that you're not exclusively this, then your heart can open and be broken open 1,000 times, again and again and again, and you see you're still here, you're still shining through all of it. So it's really a message about coming alive. Really alive, like a whole roller coaster of life, the highs and the lows. It's really hard for me to embrace discomfort. But who you really are, it's already happening, isn't it? It's already happening.
In some ways, I think that's why this work is so funny, you know?
Oh, it's very funny.
Because the whole message is about, well, it's not all about, but in one way you can see it as having a message at all is not the message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the message that is being delivered isn't the message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. The teachings of the Buddha are not the teachings of the Buddha, kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, if you like, yeah.
So where does this intent for you to have the message out there? What is that? Tell us, what is that for you?
I don't know if I can even answer that. I mean, I started doing this, and when I started doing it, there was a whole torrent of thinking that exploded. You know, it was, you can't possibly do this. You know, everyone's going to see what an idiot you are, the fool that you always were. You've got away with it this long, and finally it's all going to be revealed. You know, and all these crazy thoughts, and then then it was clear that I definitely had to do this. You know, because all that's just more of the same old rubbish. You know, all based around the vulnerable me. Needs to protect itself, you know. And it's just grown from there, really. And I just love meeting in this way. Yeah, when we're not trying to be something. We're not, I'm not trying to manipulate you or you manipulate me. There's just an openness here. And then we reflect. You see your own reflection. Just here now. This beingness that we were talking about. This is obviously not reflecting because these are very different. But this that we are sees itself time and time again in all sorts of different shapes and sizes of people that come to the meetings and the retreats. And there's a real celebration in this amness that I am and its expression. And here it is. Expressing as this conversation. And it's just a real joy in living, doing this. Where it's going, I have no idea.
Do you find that being a teacher really pushes your buttons, your inner buttons about your concept of self?
Yeah, I mean, this whole teacher label thing. I know you're calling me a teacher, but
yeah,
I just did a meeting last night, and someone was asking me, what's different about you? How have you? What have you got that I haven't got? And the answer is nothing. I'm not special at all. The idea that I should sit on a big chair and, dish out advice to people about how to live their life, it's incredible. I mean, I wouldn't dream of doing that because I don't have anything that you don't have. That's what I love this message, because it's saying that you've already got this. You don't have to cultivate it or go looking for it. It's just seeing what's already here. And when I saw that in my own life, it was such a wonderful thing that, to give that message, I think is a wonderful thing as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important message. I mean, not to make it special,
but
it's a really important
there is nothing
message,
special.
Actually.
I have nothing special. Every time we look into it, we can just go right there immediately. Are you here now? I mean, and we really don't have to reach for anything to say yes to that. It's that basic beingness. And then we can go further into that, and we can't find an edge to it, and well, you know, I don't
Get
want to
lost.
go in,
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to go into the whole thing, but we can, you know, really explore together. We can really go into our experience, the minutiae of our experience, and see this separation, this famous separation that we've been living according to our whole life. We can't be found in our childlike experience.
So funny, because even me now, interviewing you, I have an agenda, you know, in some sense. You know, you can see that I want to bring something out. And then I kind of look at that, and I realize that I've been judging myself for that.
Right.
And I think even having an agenda, fine.
Yeah, it's a big fat yes.
Yeah.
This message.
Yeah. So it's like, well, not to make it sound very dualistic, but I always feel like in me there are two forces. You know, one that has this message and one that is unconscious of this message. But then...
Can you find that one who's unconscious of this message? Can you describe that one?
Well, he is... he's a bit tight, you know? He's a bit... he's like this. I get this image of like this.
Yeah.
You know? He's the one that's kind of battened down the hatches.
Yeah. And you see that tightness and that image of like this. All of that arising now. In this. In this that you are. So even those, what you call two forces, it might seem that way, but it's not really two things. That's really what this message is about. It's seeing that everything that's arising, even the idea of two-ness, is arising in this. That's why it's so simple, and it's. I often say it's blindingly obvious. It's so obvious that it's overlooked continually.
I think we're just gonna start wrapping things up. Would you like to mention anything else?
No.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.